Welcome to the Starlight Pet Talk podcast, where we'll talk about and explore ways to help pet parents and future pet parents learn everything they need to know to have a happy and healthy relationship with their pet. So sit up and stay for Starlight Pet Talk, rescue, adoption, and pet parenting done right.
If you're a fan of Starlight Pet Talk, you'll love our new line of merchandise. We have t-shirts, hoodies, and more, all featuring your favorite podcast logos and designs. Plus, we're offering a limited number of Starlight Outreaching Rescue items where a portion of the proceeds go directly to animal rescue. Our merchandise is the perfect way to show your support for your favorite pet podcast and animal rescue at the same time. So what are you waiting for? Just visit our website at www.starlightpettalk.com to order your merchandise today. Welcome to Starlight Pet Talk. I'm your host, Amy Castro, and today we're going to talk about grooming your pet. It doesn't matter if you have a dog or a cat or some other animal, and it doesn't really even matter what kind of coat they're wearing. All our pets need grooming to be at their happiest and healthiest. So my guest today is Jess Rona, and Jess is an award-winning groomer, an instructor, and president of her own multidimensional grooming empire. She has a cult-like following you would not believe on social media and an impressive celebrity clientele for her Los Angeles business. She's also a content creator and a comedian, and she spent her 20s and 30s basically grooming dogs by day and making people laugh doing improv at night. So I think we're going to have a fun episode. Jess, thank you so much for being with me today. And I know you're super busy. I appreciate you making the time for us.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Hi.
Hi. So how did you get started as a groomer? Because obviously I'm sure everything's a path, right?
Yeah. And it was the path that I was not expecting to take. I sort of fell into it organically. My mom would get cat food at PetSmart deep in the valley in LA in Reseda. And I went with her to get cat food, and there was a help wanted sign. She found out they were hiring, and she's like a very pushy mom. And she was like, we're getting you a job. I just needed a job of any kind. I was 18. And so I saw all these different jobs on the application. Like, you can work with the aquatics, in the aquatic section, you can work as a cashier, you can do all these things at PetSmart, but then, there's dog bather. And I was like, ooh, that's cool. That's not like a typical 9-to-5 job. I feel like that would be more fun. And so I started bathing dogs, and I was so bad at it. It was so hard. Okay. I did love it though. I loved it. And then because I had always wanted to be an actress, I saw myself as an actress. And so I was like, well, this is a fun temporary thing just to make some money while I pursue acting. And then I was at PetSmart for 4 years. And over those 4 years, I was a bather for 2 years. And then I slowly just started to learn how to do pads. What's a cocker haircut? What's a schnauzer? Like all these different breeds. Because when I first started, I knew nothing about dogs. I only had cats. So I knew nothing. I didn't even know dog breeds. I didn't know anything. And so, I just started to learn organically over the years. But that's the short answer. But that's how I got started.
It's funny that you said that you thought dog bathing would be fun. That's anyone that has a dog would know. It's probably, unless it's a little dog. Like, I don't mind bathing my Chihuahua, but bathing my Bulldog's a whole nother ball of wax.
Oh, yeah. And I was a kid, I didn't know anything at that time, really.
You didn't know enough to be very afraid.
No.
So going from working at PetSmart to building your own business, I mean, that is I think it's a huge accomplishment. I mean, for anybody to have a business, but to have a business that's operating at the level that you're operating with the clientele that you have, and I will speak as a client. And also, I actually was a dog bather, and I got to trim the pads, and I got to do anal glands. That's as far as they let me go. So
I love that you said I got to do anal glands. Like it's like it's a privilege.
That's right. Hey, it's a graduation from bathing, right? But people can be very demanding. And so it's a challenge. I think when people get into working with animals, you think about working with animals. You don't think about how difficult it can sometimes be working with people, whether it's clients, employees, things like that. So more power to you for
Thank you.
Doing what you're doing. So what I was hoping we could talk about today a little bit is, because I have kind of seen it from both sides, I think there are definitely things that people can do to make the whole trip to the groomer easier for everybody involved, not only for yourself as the pet owner, but for your pet, but also for the groomer. Because I think we expect groomers to sometimes, we see these, I mean, I've seen your fabulous videos, you see these fabulous looking animals, but they don't happen in a vacuum. That miraculous haircut or whatever it might be doesn't happen without a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes to make that even a possibility. So what would be a couple things you think that pet owners could do, let's say before they even leave the house or between grooming appointments, that would make the whole process easier?
Well, when you say between grooming appointments, are you talking about making the process easier for everybody at the groomer or at home?
Well, let's start at home, and then we'll
Okay.
go, and then we'll kind of progress chronologically, because I think there are a lot of things, at least in my experience, that if you just did this first, then your groomer could do this magical thing that you want them to do.
Well, sure. I mean, the first thing I think about is brushing, but I want to talk about brushing in a way that, well, so a lot of times a new client will come in and say, I brush my dog all the time, every day, and it's still matted. Or they don't believe that the dog is matted because they brush every day, but they're using like a soft boar bristle brush and it's not getting through the coat, or they're only brushing the back of the dog. And so when you brush a dog, you just want to make sure, for the most part, with most coat types, I recommend a slicker brush for pet parents. I sell one on my website. That's my favorite. I went to Tokyo to a dog show and I found this tiny brush and I was like, what is this cute little brush? I'm going to try it. And I'm obsessed with it. So I contacted the company and I was like, please send me all of your brushes because I'm obsessed. So it's called the Tiny K Pro. But what I love about it is that it has a tiny hollow handle. So a lot of times pet parents are like, well, my dog hates getting brushed. So here's the thing with pet parents. They think their dog hates getting brushed and they are brushing just the back, or their dog won't allow them to brush certain parts. So there's so many ways you can tackle this. First of all, the dog hates being brushed because it probably hurts or it hurt in the past. So they have this memory of like brushing equals pain or discomfort. So what you can do is, how can we think about rebuilding the trust? And that's what I'm working on. I have a new course coming out all about rebuilding trust. It's more for groomers, but I'm sure pet parents would benefit. But it's just like, once you break the trust, which happens, like, oh, you're going to snag a mat sometimes. And not every dog is going to be like, no, I don't like you. But it's like, what can I do to make this the most comfortable for the dog? And so what I recommend, there's a couple things. Number one, always have a slicker brush. Maybe try to do a conditioning spray while you're brushing, which is just a nice thing you can do. You can mist it on the brush and glide the brush through, or you can mist it on the coat. If you don't have a budget for a conditioning spray, you can take some really high quality dog conditioner and mix it into a spray bottle and create sort of like a spray on, leave on conditioner. Don't overspray and don't leave it in the bottle for months and months. That has a shelf life if it's mixed with water. Another thing I tell pet parents is to do one small section at a time. So let's say your dog needs to be brushed, but your dog hates to get brushed. What if you only brush the tail? Just brush the tail today. That's it. And then give lots of treats. And then tomorrow, do one leg. And what I also recommend is put the dog up on a high surface, maybe on a yoga mat or a towel or something, so they're not slipping. And start by brushing the feet first and smush up the coat and do section by section. And start with the foot and then go up from there. And if you can't do that, no problem, but just give it a shot. The key is you want to be able to open the coat and see the skin. And also never leave a harness on. Those harnesses make so many mats. And this also, this just doesn't apply to short-coated dogs, but this is only for those dogs that really will get matted if they don't go to the groomer. And so this is more for like maintaining your dog between groomings. I also have a pet parent course on my website for maintaining your dog between groomings, because I'm in alignment with you. I want to teach pet parents how to make it like not just easy on the dog, but easy on the groomer and easy on the pet parent. Like, what can we do? There's so many things you can do. That's just brushing. That's like one small thing. I also just highly recommend starting a nice relationship with a groomer early on in the dog's life, or as soon as you adopt a dog. And so if you get a puppy, I even encourage people to go bi-weekly for just baths for the first 3 months after their last set of shots. and book it when the puppy is like not even ready to go. Pre-book it. I love saying do the first appointment if you can. Those first early appointments are usually the best because the groomer's focused on that one dog. There isn't the whole day of dogs coming in. There's so many things. I feel like I'm going off topic.
No, but you're right. If you think about it, I remember when my daughter's 30 now, but when she was little, it wasn't like you wait till they're 5 and take them to the dentist and expect that they're going to cooperate and it's going to be a pleasant experience. I mean, at least our dentist was great in saying, bring her here and we'll do nothing. Just have her hang out while you're getting your teeth cleaned. And then, we'll let her sit in the chair. And you can tell, I mean, even as a layperson, I can tell, you talk about walking by, PetSmart, you can tell the animals who've been there, done that, and the ones who somebody decided I'm 8 years old and I need to go to the groomer out of the blue. And they've not had that acclimation that I think is really important for not only their stress level, but I would assume it makes them much more cooperative when you're trying to work on them.
Yeah, I mean, I've been surprised though. Sometimes the dog is like an adopted dog and they haven't really been to the groomer and they're fine. So, I mean, I think it's a lot about building trust. And if the dog is just naturally submissive and passive, they're going to be okay. But if the dog has anxiety or isn't trusting, that's like another thing. It's funny that you said it's like a dentist, because when I teach groomers, I compare our experience at a dentist to a dog's experience at the groomers. It's just this thing. It sucks. We got to do it. It's like, it's not fun. It's uncomfortable, but it's so funny that you said dentist, because that's how how I imagine a dog would feel about the groomer.
Yeah, I was talking to my veterinarian the other day, and she was basically talking about the same way with the vet. You practice by going in the car. You practice by making it a positive, like you said, giving treats, things like that, doing things in little steps if you need to. I mean, if somebody's go with the flow and they're great with it, then great. But I think being prepared to go through that process is probably important. Yeah. Let's talk about some of the things maybe that clients do, whether it's once they get there and in making their appointment, that makes the process harder on everybody.
Yeah. So a lot of times I will coach my clients to have a no big deal energy when dropping off the dog, because even some of my regulars, the dog will get a little trembly, and this is just their way of releasing their anxiety. So it's nothing to get too worried about. But what happens is with some of my clients, they'll carry the dog in like a baby. They'll try to treat the dog like a human baby, which of course human babies give them all the comfort, that they need, or little kids, like, of course, hug all the children. But like when you do it with a dog, sometimes it makes it worse. So my biggest advice is to have a no big deal energy only at drop off. And then when you pick up, also sort of have a no big deal energy and then wait for the dog to calm down before you say hello. And that's sort of like just any greeting for the most part, because sometimes that big excitement can lead to other behavioral issues with dogs. Too much jumping, just like overly excited, just crazy. So I just say, just ignore, act like no big deal. And this is usually with newer clients that are new dog owners. And I just say, like, the biggest lesson I learned, especially when I was a new puppy owner and I did all this research and I realized I have to wait till I had a little puppy. She's 11 now, but when she was a baby, I had to kind of ignore her until she settled. And I never pet the dog when they're not in a state that I want them to be in. And so that's the biggest advice I can give to pet parents is the more anxious you're feeling, the dog will pick up on it. So even fake it. Fake having a no big deal energy. And if the dog is nervous at drop off, see if you can call ahead of time or email your groomer and give all haircut instructions or chat about it so that you're not sitting and talking to the groomer while your dog is like panicked. Because a lot of times once the pet owners leave, the dog calms down instantly with us. So it's like usually just that drop off. And I have to convince them, like, I promise you, they're fine once you leave. It's like the leaving part is really hard. And I'm a pet parent too. I'm the same way. I'm overly protective of my dogs. I have 2 dogs. And I'm a naturally sort of anxious person. I do a lot of work on it. I meditate. I do a lot of work on that, but it's just in my bones. And so I accept it. I live with it. But I don't want to put it too much on my dogs.
That's great advice. And I did see that in one of your videos about the shortened drop off time. And
Yeah,
I remember
quick and easy.
Yeah, make it no big deal, and it's going to be no big deal. That's great advice. What else? What else do they do that might make things difficult for you in trying to accomplish what it is that they want you to accomplish with their pet?
Well, I mean, pet parents are not groomers. And so if a pet parent is really heavy-handed with the instructions, it makes a groomer feel like they're not trusted. That said, I don't mind some feedback. I don't mind being guided. You know, if you like long ears, great. Before I became known, I would have to prove myself to my clients. And so they didn't know what I could do. So I would get a list of things like do this, 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 and this. And I would just be like, well, of course I'm going to do those. Like clip the nails, you know, all that stuff. And this is just a responsible pet parent, you know, trying to make sure that they're getting what they're paying for. But I think there's a fine line between letting the groomer do their job and being too heavy-handed. So that's just another little point that I wanted to make. Luckily, I don't have a ton of that. I don't think a ton of people are like that. For me personally, my preference is to allow me to do my job. And then I always say, especially with first-time clients, it might take a couple tries for me to get it right because I am a people pleaser and I want people to like what I do. So yeah, I feel like just if there's anyone out there listening that is just not trusting of the groomer, just maybe try to give it a shot and see what they do. I don't know. Could backfire. Who knows? I think it just depends on the skill level of the groomer.
Yeah, and I think it's important, too, that people have not only realistic expectations of the groomer, but also of what you're giving the person to work with. It's like, if you're expecting me to make a really high-quality, fancy Italian dinner, and you give me the cheapest canned tomato sauce and want me to use that instead of making my own with fresh ingredients, you're gonna get what you get. So how do you handle people that have unrealistic expectations?
Oh, like I'm very honest with them. And and I've done so much work on how to run a business and how to have clients and treat them with empathy and love, which I do. And I love all my clients. And I just say, like, you know, if you bring me a photo of a dog that's a totally different breed, it's usually people bring me a photo of their dog when their dog was a puppy and say, can you recreate this? Or they'll give me a photo of a dog that is not freshly groomed. They want like a natural puppy look. And what happens is, like, puppies have a different coat than their adult. There's an adult coat and a puppy coat. And so I'll just be really upfront and just say, well, let's just call the dog Josie. This is Josie as a baby. So her nose is smaller. Like, puppies have different coat types. Their features are different. And so I won't be able to recreate it, but I can use this as inspiration for sure. But I'm just totally honest with people. That's how I handle it. I'm just like, you know, I'll do my best. This can be a beautiful starting point. But that's why I kind of give myself an out when I have new clients. And I just say, let the haircut settle for a couple days. See how you like it. I'll check in a couple days and we can go from there. And just, I love this. I don't love this. I love feedback. So I want to make sure I get that from my clients because ultimately I'm in the service industry. And I want to make sure I'm being of service. I also, like I said, I'm a total people pleaser. So I'm in the right line of work. So if you're happy, I'm happy.
Well, and you've got the double challenge too. Of not only keeping the person happy, but keeping the animal happy and doing what's right by the animal for sure.
Oh yeah. If a dog, I'll tell you, there's a very common cycle, especially with doodle owners. Doodle owners are getting a reputation in the grooming industry. I don't know if you know about this, but what happens is, I'll tell you, and especially since you have an audience of pet parents, if you're a doodle owner, here's what we groomers are starting to say. I mean, I don't know if you're noticing, but it's harder to get your doodle groomed unless you are grandfathered in or you've started as a puppy and you come regularly. New doodle owners, it's hard to get in, especially in LA. I don't know if it's like this everywhere, but here's a cycle that we're seeing over and over again is the pet parent wants to keep the dog fluffy. So fluffy sometimes they don't even want the eyes trimmed. So fluffy, right?
I don't care that you can't see.
I know. They don't care the dog can't see. I mean, not everybody's like that, but some of them are. They do not brush properly. And when they say, I brush every day, all I do is brush my dog. Do you brush in between the toes? Do you brush the armpits? Do you brush the ankles? How about under the tail? How about behind the ears? These little details. Let's say I brush my whole dog, but all those little spots are matted. So now the dog is matted according to the groomer, because this is going to take time. And the time is, I mean, we charge $2 a minute for dematting at my shop. And the clients pay for it because they get beautiful work. But also we draw the line. But hold on, I'm diverting. So the cycle is, my dog is long. I want them long. Great. They're a little matted. Let's demat today. But I recommend that you take the dog shorter so it's a little bit less of maintenance. No. I want my dog long. Great. Next time, I promise I'm going to brush and I'm going to stay on a schedule. Next time, same thing. Same thing. The dog is now a little bit more matted because the coat didn't get cut the last time, or the coat was left too long. Now the dog's more matted, and now it's another demat charge, and the client is frustrated. Now the dog is associating being at the groomer with getting dematted. Luckily at my shop, I've trained everybody. We have a very gentle dematting technique. It's time consuming, but it is not uncomfortable for the dog for the most part. So now we have a cycle. And then what happens is the client comes in again. The dog is so mad we have to shave it. So now we shave the dog, and now it's a shaved dog. And the owner is so upset. And so are we. We don't want to shave the dog. We want to do something beautiful. And then it happens again where we want to grow it out. Now I'm not going to go to the groomer for 2 months because they're not going to need a haircut. So here's what I recommend. If you have a doodle that is a big boofy bear and is so cute, fluffy, there are alternative haircuts you can do that are still fluffy and adorable, especially those feet. My friend has a doodle, and in LA, there's foxtails everywhere, and the dog got a foxtail. She couldn't find it. He had to go to the vet. The feet are all matted. It's like a whole thing. And this was like my best friend's dog. And I'm like, girl, come over. So like, it's just better to just get on a routine. So if you want to keep your dog fluffy, go to the groomer weekly or bi-weekly and get just a bath and condition, and just get the groomer to brush out the dog if you can afford it. If you can't afford it, go once a month. If you can't do once a month, do every other month. But see if you could do a bath and tidy in between haircuts at the groomer, which is a less expensive service. People don't realize like those bath and tidy appointments are just so valuable because we check the nails, we trim the nails, we trim the pads. Sometimes we could do the sanitary area. I mean, at my shop, we do everything. And then we glide a comb through a beautifully conditioned coat, and it's perfect. So take advantage of your groomer for bath only appointments too, not just haircuts. And also, one more thing, short-haired dogs need grooming too. A lot of people think that if they have a short-haired dog, they don't need a grooming. That's not true. And if you don't want to go monthly, that's fine. But I think every dog should get a beautiful bath at least once a month. I have a short-haired dog. She gets bathed. We de-shed, we deep condition, brush her teeth, clean her ears, trim her nails. There's so much you could do for a short-coated dog. We de-shed. So all the bears and babies need grooming. And when I say bears and babies, I mean dogs. That's just what I say.
So many excellent points there. Obviously doodles are super popular in Houston, as they are around.
I guess they're just popular now.
They are very popular. That's a whole other subject. But it brings up a couple key points. Number one, obviously what you said, the things that people should be doing and then don't. So you're going to pay the price, whether it's paying the price or whether your dog's paying the price because it's there for hours, or it's unhappy because it's, getting mats taken out, things like that. But I think people need to think about that when they think about what kind of pet they're getting, how much maintenance is required. Do I have the time, energy, budget to maintain a doodle, or, would I be better off getting a shorter haired dog? I mean, it kind of starts from the very beginning.
Yeah. And as groomers, like if we're doing a beautiful haircut on a doodle, one doodle could be the same time as 3 small dogs.
I believe
or 2 small dogs for us. One doodle could be the same as, like 2 poodles, 2 little mini poodles. So I need to charge double for a doodle. So people are like, oh my God, groomers charge so much. Well, it's because you're taking the spot of 2 or 3 other dogs. Mm-hmm. And I hope groomers listening that that charge for your time and skill. And so if you're taking the time, charge the amount that you should charge for that. And people don't realize this is why it's so expensive. And this is also why some groomers are like, you know what? For my back and my time, everything, I'm just going to not have doodles over, and I'll just have 2 Malteses come over, and it'll be much easier on my body. So, I mean, there's some groomers that feel that way. because it's hard work. You're just a big doodle on your table. You're lifting the leg to get the armpit. It's physically a lot of work. It depends on the doodle though. Like some of them are just as big as horses. They're just so big. I mean, I love the little mini ones. They're so cute. I mean, give me a mini doodle any day. It's just those big bears that are just so much work. And so if you're on the fence and thinking about getting a big doodle, I mean, they're amazing. Keep them short, especially if they swim. Oh my God, swimming makes dogs so matted. If you have a dog that loves to jump in the pool, I'm talking doodles or big curly coated dogs, just keep them short. It's so much easier. They'll grow out again.
That's right. And that's what I was going to say too earlier is like nothing we're doing here is permanent. So in another month, you can try something different or, take a different approach.
The only kind of cut that is sort of permanent is if you cut a double coated dog too short. Like for poms and stuff, I would not recommend cutting those dogs short because it totally damages the coat and it's just not great for them.
That brings up a great point because I remember when I saw you on Drew Barrymore, and that was like a year or so ago, she had, I think it was a golden retriever, but let's just say it was a golden retriever. And you were talking about, other than maybe tidying things up, that you wouldn't cut the hair on a dog like that. One of the things people do down here in Houston, because it is so ungodly hot and humid, is that they like to shave their animals down. So they shave down golden retrievers and they shave down things that 40 years ago, maybe not quite 40 years ago, but pretty close to 40 years ago that I worked at a groomer. And the philosophy then was those aren't the kind of dogs you shave. Like you don't shave a golden retriever.
Still the philosophy. Yeah.
Okay. So what is the rationale? My dog will be cooler if I shave all its hair off in the summer.
Oh, I have this conversation with my clients every summer and every winter. So dogs' coats are not like sweaters. They're more like insulation. There's these little muscles around each follicle of a dog's coat. They're little follicular muscles that move the coat up and down to regulate their temperature. Dogs are absorbent through their skin. They have very sensitive skin. And so when you take off their first defense, which is their coat, now they're going to be prone to skin issues. I hope that they don't get sunburned, but it could happen. They're just exposed to the elements so much when they don't have that first line of defense. So the best thing to do with a dog to cool them off, I mean, they're going to be hot. It's summer. Everyone's hot. Don't leave them outside all day. Bring them inside. Keep them cool. And take off that undercoat. It's the undercoat that gets packed in for like those thick double-coated dogs, like the Huskies, the Poms, Samoyeds, those kinds of dogs, some Shepherds. So you just want to I love the Artero double-sided flexible slicker. It's a brush, Artero. Love that brush for double-coated dogs. They come in a different sizes, but what I love about them is that they're great for the undercoat of dogs. And so for a dog that has a double coat, the best thing to cool them off is to brush them and bathe them and let their skin breathe by removing their undercoat. Because what happens is you shave these dogs and you completely damage their coat. I mean, it's not life or death. They're going to be fine. I get worked up. I used to get so upset seeing like shaved double-coated dogs. Like, oh my God, how could you? Because they don't know. People don't know. There's one in my neighborhood. There's like a husky that gets shaved. And I'm just like, you know what? When it comes down to it, these dogs are being taken care of. They have a home. They have food. When it really comes down to it, it's not the end of the world. But I mean, me as like a picky, opinionated groomer, I do, scoff when I get upset. But it's not great for them. So I'll just say that it's not great. I think that something that's even worse is dental neglect, or, if they neglect the nails and the nails grow into the pads. I mean, I've seen it all. And the biggest pet peeve of mine is seeing dogs out on hot asphalt in the summer. I go to the flea market. I go to the farmer's market in LA. It gets to 80 or 90 degrees. And these are in parking lots. The flea market is in a parking lot. It is 100% asphalt. And I see these panting, low to the ground dogs, especially smush face dogs, like pugs that are in this hot parking lot. They will overheat and you can really potentially harm them. That is what I'm really concerned about, is walking your dog outside on hot asphalt. Even in boots, it's still too much because they're low to the ground and the heat will emanate from the ground.
Yeah, we try to do a lot of education down here because obviously it's ungodly hot here too. And you get animals, their pads burn.
Yeah.
The philosophy is if you can't walk on your bare feet on it, they shouldn't be walking on it either.
Yeah. And like, don't just take a flip flop off and put your foot down for a second. Walk bare feet for 10 or 15 minutes. Can you do it? So, like, people think of their dog's coat as a sweater. They think they need to keep them longer in the winter and shorter in the summer. But that's just not the case. It's insulation and it regulates their temperature. So leave a little coat. That said, if your dog is, a matted poodle or something and it gets short, that's great. Like, you can keep your dog short if you need to prevent matting. You can shave a dog like with that kind of coat type and it won't damage the coat and it won't hurt the dog at all. It's mostly just the double coated dogs, the shepherds and that sort of thing, the Goldens, the Huskies. Those are the dogs that should not be shaved. And especially Pomeranians, because I've seen it cause alopecia. I've seen it where the coat doesn't grow back or like half the coat grows back and only the undercoat, not that glossy guard hair. Those are the double coats. It's like a cottony undercoat and a glossy guard coat. And so sometimes only the undercoat grows back and it grows back in patches, and don't do it. Keep your dog brushed. And if you can't maintain a long, fluffy Pomeranian, do a longer haircut. It still damages the coat, but it's not as bad. Or just like hand scissor the tush in the underline or something. Just one more thing. If you do have a shaved dog that's like a white dog that gets shaved, don't leave them out in the sun too long because they can get sunburned.
Yep,
those little babies.
They definitely do. What would you say would be some tips that would be helpful to facilitate communication between groomer and pet parent? I love the advice to call and have those conversations in advance and not at the door when your dog is nervous. But what are some things that we can do to better communicate with our groomers so that we're on the same page?
Well, I think just as humans, let's just talk about human communication. Have empathy and listen. And I feel like if both parties are having empathy and listening to each other, I think it would be a great relationship and a great way to communicate. When you're a groomer, you're in the service industry. And so you're of service to your client. And when you're a client, you're of service to your dog, really. And so you want to make sure that everyone is taken care of. One thing I really love is on both ends to show gratitude. When a client gives us gifts for the holidays, I give gifts for the holidays. I just really love to show gratitude. And I think it goes a long way in any relationship. So if you have a groomer that you love, show them some kind of gratitude, whether it's a big tip out of the blue or a gift, or if you're a groomer listening, what can you do to give your clients a cute little something? Even if it gets a lot to buy a bunch of clients something, but even if it's just some homemade dog treats or a little, one year I did little custom name tags for my clients, just something to give back. So I feel like that's good for communication is empathy, listening, and gratitude.
Great. I was thinking of something else that I wanted to ask you related.
Well, what is it?
Oh, honesty.
All dying to know. Okay,
honesty. So you were talking about these people that they say they brush their dog every day, but maybe they do, maybe they don't. Do you feel like people are generally honest? Do you think that they think they're being honest, that they're not? Are they trying to pull something over?
I think they're honest. I think their techniques are wrong. I always assume people have the best intentions. It's just an assumption I put on everyone, my clients, my employees, every relationship. So I think they're trying their best. Whether or not they do it every single day, I don't really care. Basically, I just care, is the dog matted or not? And I think they're just brushing the back. I think they're using the wrong tools. I think they just aren't educated on what real good brushing is. And so that's where the empathy comes in, where I'm like, okay, you're saying this. It doesn't matter to me if they're lying or not. Let's just go with the facts. You're saying this. I think what's happening is you're using the wrong tools. Let's get you on the right path. I'm going to give you this brush. I usually make them get the Tiny K Pro brush, and I have a conditioning spray that I sell at my shop. Those are the two things I send them home with. I say, if you're going to bathe your dog between groomings, just make sure to brush the dog when they're dry before the bath. Bathe and condition, even if you're in a humid climate, condition the dog. And then once they're dry again, brush again. And I say brush with the slicker brush and brush the feet, brush the armpits, the legs, the back legs. Usually people will have their dogs sit when they get brushed, but then their back legs don't get brushed. So it's just they're not professional groomers. I don't expect the world from them. So if they can't do it, let's get them into the shop more. especially if they have goals of keeping their dog stunning and gorgeous and fluffy. If you have those goals, we got to get you in more. That's all. And if you can't afford it, we'll just keep the dog shorter, and it's not the end of the world. They look so cute when they're short. You can have a fluffy short. It doesn't have to be shaved or fluff. There's all different lengths now. The grooming, I mean, since you've been in, and there's clip-on combs, there's like all different blade lengths now. There's so many options for haircuts now. And also groomers are getting so good because now there's so much education out there. When I was starting, I was just emailing before and after photos to my mentors saying, can you please help me? Now, I mean, with my online courses, there's online courses for everyone. And I feel like there's just so much education that wasn't there before. It's amazing. So now groomers are getting really good. Like the chop shop crappy groomers are few and far between now. Groomers are getting really good. It's exciting.
Yeah, that's kind of how I first started thinking about this concept of, what we can do to do a better job with the groomer. We're speaking at a grooming conference, and to see the hundreds and hundreds of groomers and how hard they are in the competitive grooming, that's a whole nother, I know you've done that before. For those who've never watched or participated in competitive grooming, and then correct me if I'm wrong, at least the one that I went to, they're basically handed a dog that they've never worked on before and are tasked with grooming that animal on a stage in front of a bunch of people. Is that pretty accurate, or not always?
Not always. Okay. But that actually goes into consideration with judging. I was apprentice judging in Pasadena at the Groom Expo. I'm starting to apprentice judge. And one of the things I learned as what they take into account when judging is they say, like, have you met this dog before? And if they haven't, they'll make sure that they note that on the file when they're pre-judging, just to see the transformation, see how the groomer handles a dog. There is a competition called the Rescue Rodeo, which is really fun. And it's just a rescue competition where a rescue comes in and groomers get assigned a dog at random. And those are the dogs, but there's a lot of leniency with those. I mean, it's like rescue dogs, but some of them get adopted after the show, and it's really cool. Some of the groomers want to adopt the dog, which is really special. I mean, I've been to rescue rodeos where I'm like, okay, how do I get this dog and take it home? Because they're snoopy bears. Some of these are just little terrier, little mixes that are just needing a home, and they're so sweet. And the rescues will only bring dogs that are well-behaved and sweet and trusting. But no, a lot of groomers who are really in the competitive world will buy purebred dogs to use for competition. And also these groomers are obsessed. They will buy a purebred, gorgeous, perfectly bred Bichon or whatever, and they'll show the dog, they'll groom the dog in competitions. And these are their lifelong companions. So it's not just like, I'm meeting this dog and grooming it. And what happens is they groom the dog throughout the dog's life in every competition. For the most part, I mean, they stop grooming the dog at I think when they get to be 8 or 9 or something, they'll stop. But what happens is the groomer gets better and better and better. And each competition is different depending upon who your competition is. But these groomers will use the same dogs in every competition just to try to tweak it to get better and better. There's so much to know about perfecting a groom that it takes years upon years to learn one breed standard perfectly.
I can't even imagine the amount of hours. I don't have any that need haircuts at this stage, thank God. But I did have this little rescue terrier mix named Buddy, and I used to try to give him my version of a schnauzer cut. He wasn't a schnauzer, but I wanted him to have the little beard. And when I took my time, it would look okay. But sometimes it was just like, yeah, we're not doing this. And then my husband would look at the dog and say, oh, Buddy, did Mama give you a haircut again? I'm so sorry. It's like, I wasn't exactly a professional. Should have left it to the professionals. So I couldn't wrap this up without asking if you have either a great story to share, something that you're particularly proud of, or just maybe I want to know a little about your celebrity clients. Can you tell us who any of those are?
Well, those are 3 questions. Which one do you want to answer?
All of them, and then we'll decide.
Okay.
Which one do you want to answer?
The first one is there's something I'm proud of? Yeah, I'm proud that I've been able to build a business that builds up groomers and teaches groomers and helps groomers, not only the groomers who work for me, my employees, and I want to empower them with knowledge, but I want to empower groomers everywhere. And I'm able to do that with my online platform. So that's something I'm really proud of. And I'm leaning more into pet parents too. I'm starting a YouTube series soon, so stay tuned for my YouTube channel, which is going to be, I put up some videos, but I'm going to be more mindful about it throughout the rest of the year and next year. But that's one thing I'm proud of is my online courses and just being able to reach more people and help more people. And then what was the other question?
A particularly interesting dog grooming story, like,
One of the ones I tell, and I've told this before, but I had this very flamboyant, very colorful client. This was like 15 years ago. And color on your dog was not that popular. So I cringed thinking about it. He wanted like a pastel, he had a white Pomeranian, and he wanted a pastel, beautiful, like mint. I had done a beautiful sunset on the dog before where I did like pastel yellow blended ombre into pinks and oranges, and the tail was like an orange, the whole dog. And I accidentally did like a dark Smurf blue, and he did not like it, and it was too dark. And it's a palm, and the coat just didn't, it took like 2 years for it to grow back. Like it was a whole thing. And
Ouch.
I was devastated. I was so sad. Like I wish that I could go back to that moment, but I got to learn. You got to learn. He was so sweet about it and so kind to me and like was not angry. And that's just a crazy story. I mean, the dog looked really cute. It was really cute. I mean, this was a really long time ago, but didn't ever do that again. It's permanent.
We learn from our mistakes, but it was nice that he was nice about it and didn't have a big, because that would have been 2 years of hell.
Oh yeah. And also now they have dog, shampoos where you could do a nice pastel wash on the dog where it's not like, a whole thing, but this was a long time ago. Okay. So celebrity clients. Well, my biggest one is Katy Perry, and she is a huge supporter of my business and really helped me so much. Like she put a blurb on the front of my book. She's just been a dream and I love her so much. She's a pleasure to work with. She's a delight. She's such an inspiration. I'm so inspired by her and love her so much. And I mean, I have like Jane Lynch is a client, Natasha Lyonne. I have a list written down, Maya Rudolph, because I'm like, who are my celebrity clients? It's funny because I grew up in LA and it's like celebrities are so cool and fun, but I don't, they're just like, when you grow up in LA, they're just kind of everywhere and it's not really a big deal. I mean, it's a big deal because you're like, wow. I kind of describe it as, when you see like some sort of great wonder of the world, like Yosemite Falls or, like the Egyptian pyramid, something like where you're kind of awestruck by something. That's sort of how I feel when I see Katy Perry or someone where I'm like, wow, you're a wonder of the world. You're a wonder. You're a magical, sparkly, special type of person that has this talent and charisma and magic. So of course I'm going to have some kind of reaction to them. And then after knowing them for a little while, you're like, oh, you're just like a normal person that just happens to be extremely talented. And you can honestly say that about a lot of people. If you're really talented at woodworking, and the world is obsessed with woodworking, you're going to be famous, I just feel like it's hard for me to remember who all my celeb clients are. But definitely Natasha Lyonne, Jane Lynch. When I met Jane Lynch, Best in Show is probably my favorite movie of all time. I was like, I don't usually do this, but I just have to tell you, I'm a huge fan. I love you. I'm like, my world is sort of like that world. It's not the dog show world, but it's the dog grooming world. And it's very similar. And I'm obsessed with you. And then, okay, now let's talk about your dog. I had to get that out of the way.
Got to get it out in the open. Yeah.
Yeah. There's been some celebrities where I'm like, okay, I love you a lot. This is cool.
That's nice. It's nice.
Yeah.
That's great. Anything else to kind of pull it together? Anything that we didn't talk about that you feel like pet parents need to know?
Yeah.
Anything you can think of?
Just being a caretaker and just making sure that you're taking care of this little beast that relies upon you. So making sure their dental is up to date, like get their teeth cleaned. And if they can't go under anesthesia, do an anesthesia-free dental cleaning every 6 months or every year. Make sure their nails are short and they're not growing too long. Make sure they're not getting matted. Make sure you check their ears. Just, keep up with them. Just make sure they're well maintained. Senior dogs have a different, lifestyle as a younger dog. If you have a younger dog, don't keep them outside all day in the backyard. Take them on a walk. Keep them inside. Dogs are pack animals. It's just very isolating and sad and lonely if a dog's outside in the backyard with no one else. They're pack animals, so at least get them another dog or bring them inside if they're part of your family. I don't really know how common it is for people to just leave their dogs outside anymore. I think I don't know, maybe.
It's sadly common. I mean,
is it?
I shouldn't say common. It's a real issue in Texas.
Oh, is it?
Here, there are a lot of people who a dog is property. Well, in the state of Texas, considers dog property. And so you have a lot more leniency as to what you can do with it. Although there's a lot of people working super hard to fight a lot of that. Right now, the biggest fights are about dogs being chained outside. So it's let alone being outside, being chained
inhumane
to a tree or something.
Yeah, it's inhumane. Dogs are pack animals. They need to be socialized. They need to be with other dogs or with people. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to get another dog for my dog to help them. But sometimes that backfires because you're their pack leader. If they're isolated outside, it's inhumane. And I feel like that's my opinion. And I feel like it shouldn't be allowed. Or if they're outside, don't chain them to, what's that life? What life is that? That is just so sad.
Why have a dog?
Why have a dog? Yeah.
Yep.
But these are people that are just unevolved. They're people that don't understand. It's just old school. They don't get it. They're not tapped into their empathy. They're not tapped into the dog at all. They don't care. They have a numbness or they're shut off. They're not like these people that are, in therapy and learning about healing and, all that stuff. I feel like they're just, whatever, who cares? So it's a little bit of a harsher way. And there's just some people like that. It's part of the world. I love that it's changing. It's still a thing, I think, in LA. I don't think it's as big of a problem. Maybe I'm just sheltered and I don't know, but I don't see it very often. And it's also very much not the type of person I attract as a client. People I attract as a client are like, I'm obsessed with my dog. Do anything. Please just take great care of my dog. And I feel like that's probably the person who's listening to this. But if a person who's listening to this knows of someone, whether it's a neighbor or a friend or someone who has a dog being chained outside and just lives their life like that, maybe you can do something to help the dog. Maybe it's time.
Like I said, there's a lot of people working to fight that on a daily basis. Thank goodness. But it's a process, like everything else. So. Well, gosh, Jess, I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're super busy and you have a business to run and all kinds of things going on. So thank you so much for being with us today and sharing these tips to make everybody's lives easier and make our dogs happier, which is what we're definitely all about.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to Starlight Pet Talk. We really appreciate you. We also want to remind you that Starlight Pet Talk is brought to you from Starlight Outreach and Rescue and our rescue ranch outside of Houston, Texas. So if you love animals and you want to help us do more to rescue and save animals, please consider getting involved, whether it's donating, volunteering, fostering, or just sharing our social media posts. Everything helps to help get animals off the streets and into loving forever homes. So again, make sure that you follow us at Starlight Outreach and Rescue.
You've been listening to the Starlight Pet Talk podcast. We're glad you joined us to gain new insight on the many loving ways to adopt and care for your pets. Be sure to subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. And if you want more information, go to starlightpettalk.com because your pet can't talk. Be sure to join us next time for Starlight Pet Talk.